This material has been reproduced and communicated to you by or on behalf of the Australian National University in accordance with Section 113P of the Copyright Act 1968. The material in this communication may be subject to copyright under the Act. Any further reproduction or communication of this material by you must be consistent with the provisions of the Act. Do not reproduce this material. Do not remove this notice.
Okay, we might kick off. Welcome. It's great to see so many people here online with us this afternoon to talk about tenders. I know that some of you are probably being wrapped up in the recent ARC Discovery Project grant round, which I believe submissions were a week or two ago now. So hopefully you're not all too fatigued from that. And for some of you, this might be the first time that you're hearing about tenders, and for others, it might not be so new. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge and celebrate the first Australians on whose traditional lands we meet and pay our respect to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Just to let you know, we are providing live captioning on the event today. This is to make the information accessible to everyone, and you can turn the captioning on and off by clicking the CC button in the Zoom meeting controls at the bottom of the screen if you don't wish to have them on. I'm Eloise O'Toole, Head of Business Development at ANU Enterprise, and in the true ANU sense, I'm going to refer to ANU Enterprise by acronym going forward, which is ANUE. Before we kick off, just a little bit about me. Some of you may know me. I've been around the university for a little while now, but some of you also may not. I've worked in the higher education sector for about 32 years, and the last 19 years of those have been at ANU and ANUE. And what I've noticed over the past 13 years or so, a key theme that keeps bubbling up is the need to diversify funding streams. And now more than ever, as you well know, there are pressure on academics to secure Category 2 and 3 funding as part of their overall funding model to support research and have impact out in the external world. Tenders are a really excellent way to build relationships and grow your network with industry and government. Tender work provides an opportunity to demonstrate your expertise and grow your funding pipeline. And for industry and government, it provides access to expertise that's underpinned by the excellent research that we do at ANU to solve real-world problems now. Joining me in the presentation today and our main speaker, who you can also see on your screen, is Dr. John Shellard. John is a Senior Business Development Manager at ANU Enterprise and has been working in the tender space for about the last 7 years or so. He has assisted many ANU academics with tender proposals across a range of different opportunities, including research services, executive education, consulting, and many others with funding amounts ranging anywhere from $80,000 right up to $50 million. Also joining us today, it's my pleasure to welcome Professor Emily Lancer. Emily is the Head of Department of Health Services Research and Policy in the College of Health and Medicine. You'll hear a little bit from Emily later about her involvement in the tender process, both in drafting proposals and the delivery of those projects. Topics we will also cover in the presentation include the procurement process. What is it? The different types of tender responses and terminology used, and how to find tender opportunities. What you need to think about before you start responding to a request for tender. Hope to give you some tips for preparing your response, including costing and pricing, risk assessment and project management plans, how to prepare your commercial CV, for example, and where you can find support to help you in developing up that proposal. We have around 40 minutes, and if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. Also, just to let you know, the presentation will be recorded and available internally to staff after the session today. Before I hand over to John and we get stuck in, just a little bit about ANU Enterprise. Some of you may not be aware of who ANU Enterprise is and how it fits into the ANU ecosystem. So ANUE was established by ANU as a company way back in 1979, and since that time has been in various different shapes, sizes and business models. Our current service offering includes free business development support and costed project management services. ANUE sits within the Research and Innovation portfolio alongside the Business Engagement and Commercialisation team, or BEC, as the acronym is. Just some key things I wanted to bring to your attention is that ANUE is a wholly owned subsidiary of the university and the university's engagement company. And we're also set up as a not-for-profit company. We have a CEO and a Chief Operating Officer, and of course a board, of which 3 directors are ANU staff and includes our DVCRI, Keith Nugent. ANUE reports to ANU Council, and ANUE's core purpose is to provide value to the ANU. Another really great thing is that any projects that are HERDIC eligible that run through ANU Enterprise, ANU receives the HERDIC return for those. So a little bit about what the business development team does. So you heard me mention just before that, part of the services that ANUE deliver is business development, and that's free of charge. So we provide support for, one of the ways in which we provide support is for tenders in the category 2 and 3 funding space. And probably over the last 4 or so years, we've helped ANU academics to win over $25 million in tender funding. So you can see there on your slide, we've just included ANU Enterprise Services there in purple, and the Business Engagement and Commercialisation, or BEC team, and what they do in business development on the left-hand side there in white. But if you'd like to learn more about ANUE, we do have a really great explainer video on our website. I'm now going to hand over to John, and John will get us underway to kick things off about what is a procurement process, and all things tendering. And just to let you know that we've sort of had a look at our audience today, and we have great representation across most of ANU colleges. So you may see some of your colleagues on the Zoom, both academic and professional staff. So thanks, John, and
thanks,
looking forward to hearing about the procurement process.
It's good to be with you, albeit online. So why am I talking about tenders? Well, as Eloise mentioned, I've had a bit of experience in this space. I've been at ANU since I came here as an undergrad. I did my PhD in social and political philosophy here in CAS, who are represented today, which is nice to see. And as I was waiting for my thesis to be examined, I got an initial sort of short-term role at ANU Enterprise. That was my first perspective on tenders, watching the BD people at ANUE seem very stressed and living in their offices all hours of the day and night. And it certainly didn't seem very appealing. But later I actually joined the BD team in 2015. And since then I've helped to coordinate a couple of 100 competitive tenders and proposals with ANU academics. And it's been a journey with there has been some late nights, some stressful submission days as well, but lots of learning and some failures and some great successes. Since we commenced our current strategy and service offering in 2017, our cumulative success rate for proposals that our team has supported is over 37%, and it's improving. I think this year, with elections and things, it's currently sitting around 80%. So today what I'm going to do is summarize some of the key lessons and give you a bit of an overall sense of what's involved in planning, preparing and winning tenders. Emily will then give you a sense of what's required from an academic's perspective. We often refer to opportunities that come out under competitive procurement processes as tenders, and this isn't technically correct. A request for tender refers to a specific type of competitive procurement process. The terms ATM, or approach to market, or RFX are often used to cover all of the different types that include an RFI, EOI, RFQ, RFP, RFT, and even pre-qualification panels. Usually the difference comes down to the policy for procurement that's being applied. Sometimes these terms are used interchangeably or differently in different jurisdictions. So for clarity, I'm just going to refer to all of these collectively as tenders. Tenders are typically issued from federal, state, and local governments for supply of goods and services under the rules of the government procurement processes. But tenders are also issued by international organizations like the UN or the World Bank Group, NGOs, and industry, particularly when there are concerns about transparency, value for money, or the use of public funds. Here are some examples of organizations who've issued tenders that we've supported ANU to pursue. The next slide there. The full process usually kicks in when the project budget goes above a certain value. And this threshold varies from state to state or in jurisdiction, but is often around $80,000. And they can range from there up to many millions. It's helpful to be at least sort of be aware that these rules and processes exist, even if you aren't across all the details. ANU engages with tenders for consulting, contract research, education, and training opportunities. Projects secured through tenders can lead to a number of benefits. They can provide funding. Tenders provide an opportunity for researchers to grow and diversify their funding base. Unlike grants, overheads, project management, and administrative inputs can be incorporated into the price of the work. And further, the surplus funds you receive from the work completed don't have strings attached like many grant programs do. And these funds can be used to support other research or activities. They're a great way to make an impact by working to solve existing problems faced by industry and government, and the application of research and expertise through tender-generated projects has a real and immediate impact on society. They can develop partnerships and lead to grants and other opportunities. Commercial projects have the potential to lead to more and bigger projects, and things like ARC linkage grants further research opportunities for those involved. And there is sometimes the opportunity to publish as well. During the negotiation stage, we're often able to negotiate permissions to publish the findings of the project or conduct further research using data collected during the project. In some cases, the clients are actually quite keen on this idea. We're currently wrapping up the delivery of a project with the World Bank Group, where the fact that ANU academics were keen to publish the results was actually an attractive point of difference. But with all that said, let me be clear, tenders aren't guaranteed rivers of gold or some silver bullet that's going to solve university funding issues. The point is that there are good reasons why tenders might be part of your plans and part of the broader funding mix. A tender is essentially a formalized buying process where a need is identified and the decision to buy is made. Then a risk assessment, process of seeking and evaluating alternative solutions, advertising, then negotiating the best value for money, and finally locking it all down in a contract. The closest thing to this that we might personally experience might be the process we go through to buy a house or a car. The additional factors at play are that often the purchaser is legally bound to abide by principles of good governance, such as public accountability, the need to demonstrate a fair and open competition, as well as other legal and regulatory processes like environmental, labor, child protection, and other things, other laws like that. Typically, an RFT document package will include the terms and conditions and evaluation criteria, including the details for how to submit, the deadlines for questions, and the final submission. Make sure you check the day, time, and time zone on these. And then a description of the buyer's requirements or needs. Request for information about the supplier's experience, capability, and capacity of the job. A financial proposal, template, or requirement. In most cases, a fixed price or schedule of rates is requested. A draft contract for review. There's also usually a chance to flag any points that you would like to negotiate. A number of standard form questions about regulatory compliance, insurances, and things like that. Though this is the general pattern, some are really simple while others are super complex, really as complex as the goods and services that are being sourced. From our perspective, the process sort of finishes when the proposal is submitted. However, for the organization that issues the tender, it's kind of only halfway done. They then usually have an evaluation committee that reads and ranks all the proposals against the evaluation criteria. As part of this process, referees might be contacted, or they might contact the tenderers again and ask for more information about their proposals. Once they've selected their preferred tenderer, there's an email notification with the outcome. Hopefully it's good news. Then after days, weeks, or months of waiting, we move straight into the negotiation and start to set up the project. A common theme is that even the organization putting out the tender will tend to underestimate the time the process takes, and the delivery of the project needs to often start with a rush. Pre-qualification panels are a bit of a twist on this standard tender process. A standing offer or panel is a government procurement mechanism to engage services from a list of suppliers. In a panel arrangement, a deed of standing offer or standard contract exists between the entity and each of the suppliers on the panel, and they then issue requests for quote when the need arises to those suppliers on the list. Essentially, it splits the process into two, with all the compliance and contracting issues being dealt with up front, and then the actual pieces of work can be issued and responded to in a much more efficient way. There are a couple of key features worth mentioning. Usually this allows for a simple RFQ rather than a full tender process each time a piece of work comes out. Some panels are also multi-access, which allows any department can use the list of suppliers. So for example, the Department of Industry set up a learning and development panel, and the Department of, say, Home Affairs can use it to procure training for staff. ANU is actually on this panel, and we've seen lots of work come through it over the last 5 years from across the Commonwealth. Often RFQs are small, but not necessarily. So panels can sometimes be a way for departments to procure little pieces of work. So the RES panel, which is the Research and Evaluation Services panel from the Department of Social Services, often sees little sort of under $100,000 pieces of work come through it. But we also saw the HILDA survey, which is a national 10-year longitudinal study, come through that panel. ANU and ANUE is listed on quite a number of the most relevant federal and state panels, but we're always keen to join more. It is worth being on panels. It's kind of a bit of a hard and thankless task getting on them. There's no guarantee of the opportunity coming through them, let alone success in winning that. And so panels are an ANU-wide effort representing everyone. And if you hear of a pre-qualification panel that's relevant to you, please contact us and we can organize it so to ensure that the broadest possible ANU response. I think we've got a list of some of the panels that ANU sees the most work come through there. That top one there, that Research and Evaluation Services, is the one I mentioned. How do you find tender opportunities? Well, all public procurement processes make their notices public and free. And you can usually subscribe for free and you'll receive emails when opportunities are released. You don't need paid services to get access to tender alerts and submit proposals. ANU Enterprise also provides a customized tender alert service. Our business development team do daily searches for ANU relevant opportunities and then email them out along with all the relevant documents and information, and also put them up on the funding opportunities page on the ANU services website. We generally work with college research officers to direct the opportunities to those who might be interested. Our goal is to find opportunities that match ANU interests or capabilities. We try hard not to miss opportunities that might be relevant while also sorting out all the irrelevant ones. We probably receive 30 or 40 a day, and we just try and pick the ones that are actually relevant to ANU. At the moment, we have sort of about 1 in 3 of the opportunities that get sent out are picked up by someone and explored, if not actually submitted. And this bar graph gives some idea of the types of sectors and themes that these opportunities cover. You can see that the Commonwealth Government is a key client, but certainly not the only one. The grey, which is private industry, doesn't use tender processes as much as government. They're more likely to contact you directly. This chart shows the sources of opportunities that ANU deals with, and you can see that most of what we do is around those tender alerts we identify and send out. But the other way that the procurement panels, those are certainly a significant percentage as well. You can see everything we send out that's currently open on the ANU funding opportunities page. Please talk to our team, the ANU business development team, about how you can get these the tender alert emails, as the process is a little bit different in each college. We'd also like to know what type of opportunities you're interested in, and we can then refine our search and make sure we catch the things that are relevant to you. Hopefully you're still interested in these types of opportunities. I'm now going to briefly address the issue of how to respond and hopefully win a tender. And you can begin right now. Even just a little bit of preparation before the opportunity comes out makes a huge difference. Some key things you can consider are these: putting together a commercially focused CV of about 2 pages, just highlighting the most relevant publications and any commercial experience you want to bring to light. Think about writing or collating a capability statement for you, your team, or your school, whatever's most relevant. These summarize the types of expertise you can bring to bear and what outcomes you can produce. Working on a team or school profile on a particular topics, which list everyone who can contribute to that topic, is a really good idea. Find out who else at ANU might be interested to and good to work with on a topic that you're interested in. And finally, if you get the chance, talk to potential client organizations. Find out what they're looking to do in your area of interest. What are their challenges and goals? What are they looking to send to market soon? All these things improve your ability to respond quickly and also will increase the chance you'll hear about the relevant opportunities from clients and colleagues. Often there'll be a notice that an opportunity will be planned for release at a certain time, particularly if it's on the larger end. I know the Commonwealth has a upcoming procurements notice that they send around regularly. Once the tender has been released, we'll circulate it with all the attached documents. You can also download them from the website, and often the client will also let those who might be interested know directly as well. And once it's out, the clock is ticking. Usually we'll have between 1 to 4 weeks to prepare a response, doing everything from writing it to getting the ANU delegate approval and submitting. The first thing to do is to thoroughly read through all the documentation. Throughout the process, we need to keep testing our understanding of what's required and ask questions early to clarify our thinking. And the more help, the better. Reach out to your college and central BD people, such as ANUE, early. Often there will be requirements or a condition that raises questions, and or might even mean we can't submit a compliant response. There's usually an opportunity to submit questions, but this usually closes a week before the submission is due. So it's essential to sort these points out early as the decision to pursue is being made. Once we have an ANU team or individual that wants to go for it, and it looks like something we can comply, we put together a tender coordination plan. There's lots of good reasons for doing this, making sure that nothing's forgotten, to distribute and track tasks within the team. Another is that the short time frame means that it's not possible to do everything required sequentially, but many of the elements are dependent on others. So for example, you can't get ANU delegate approval for the proposal without a full detailed budget, but you can't develop a budget without a solid idea of the methodology and the key inputs. So when you lay it all out and think through the dependencies, even though you might have 3 weeks, you might realize you need to nail down the methodology and book some time with the delegate by day 4, or you won't make the deadline. Some of the things to get onto early include ANU approvals, a legal review, identifying and contacting referees, letters of support, short CVs, and researcher biographies, and then those compliance questions, which I'll talk a bit later. The core of a tender response is the technical and methodological proposal, and we can help with lots of bits, but this is one bit that you'll need to take the lead on. Is similar to a grant proposal in that it describes what you'll do, how you'll do it, and what the outcomes will be. The key difference is that it responds directly to the requirements and needs to demonstrate an understanding of the client's needs. And this may require a significant change in the way you think about what you do, or it might just be a tweak in the tone used. You may be tempted to come up with a really innovative methodology, and this is great and can certainly be a winning approach, but make sure that you still address the requirement and the evaluation criteria, as this is what you'll be judged against. The key thing to communicate is what makes your proposal distinctive. What is your competitive edge? You need to explain to the client why they should pick you ahead of the team from University of Melbourne, or the cheaper bid from QUT, or the fancy team from Accenture. It's not just what you do, but the how. The whole package you're offering is important. They evaluate and accept the response that best meets their needs and offers the best overall value for money. And this is not necessarily the bid with the lowest price. So it's good to include a governance model or a project management plan to demonstrate you have a system in place to manage all the complexities such as partners, and also to monitor and track the project risks and ensure meeting the milestones and deliverables. The truth is that universities are often really hard to work with. So good planning reassures the client that you can be good to work with, and they will get what they need and the experience will be pleasant. Once you're clear on what you'll be doing, you can start to figure out what it will cost to do and how much you'll charge. They're different things. Make sure that all the relevant costs, on costs and contingencies are included. In this process, it's best if you make it very clear what your assumptions are, as they need to be tested or even may change. You need to be clear about the knowns, the unknowns, and the guesses that will inevitably be made. Commercial pricing can be applied, including overheads and indirect management costs. Things like admin and professional staff time should be included, particularly if the project isn't research and not HERDIC eligible, if it's a consultancy or a training program. Unlike a grant, if additional funds are left over after the project, there's usually no requirement to return those funds, and these can be used at the discretion of the academic with approval to fund research, attend conferences, travel, etc. No in-kind contributions should be included. Now, this can cause problems for an assessment, as it looks like the university is buying the project and also isn't usually approved by ANU. Competitive neutrality is also a consideration. We can't do things, as a publicly funded organization, we can't do things below cost. You can then add on a margin, a profit, or a contingency and round out the final price. And this can be in the form of a separate line item or a percentage on staff rates or deliverables, and it can depend on the format that's required. Pricing is one area where we get lots of requests for help. We always try and get feedback on failed proposals to get a sense of where our pricing sits. Our experience of the new costing and pricing policy is that it's pretty competitive, and you can put a bit of a margin on your budget and still win. So do talk to us if you have questions about this. The bottom line, I suppose, is that budgeting needs to be part of the story you're telling. Once you've come up with your budget, you need to reflect on how the whole package looks, making sure that it's all consistent and makes a compelling case. Most tender opportunities include a draft of the contract you'd be asked to agree to if you were to win, and usually the compliance table or a question to complete that asks if there are terms or conditions in this draft contract that you would like to negotiate and what your preferred alternative would be. So amidst everything else, we need to get a legal review of the draft contract completed before the submission deadline. Most delegates at ANU won't approve your submission without that legal review. And you'll be pleased to know that the ANU legal office are able to undertake these reviews, but they're often really busy and ask for a minimum of 2 weeks. So please reach out early to your chosen BD support to get that process underway. Partnerships can really form the winning team. Due to the very short time frame, though, sorting out a good partnership can be very difficult if you're going to reach out and establish something new in order to respond to a particular tender. Pre-existing relationships are really the way to go if possible. Not only does it help in putting the proposal together, but it also means you can actually demonstrate that the partnership will work. ANU being a complex institution with lots of separate schools and colleges, these partnership issues can also apply on internal collaborations. Make sure you factor in the time for meetings and discussions to get everyone on the same page. The key takeaway is that the more partners you include, the more complex the editing and review approval process will be, let alone the project delivery itself. So making good choices about partners and deciding early is key. Finally, I just want to mention the standard compliance questions. Most tenders ask about the legal status of ANU and also ask about the broader social, economic, and environmental impact of your proposal and ANU more generally. These can just be a formality, or they can be really difficult and time-consuming to answer. Some examples are there on the slide. We often see questions about Indigenous participation in procurement. Some of these questions are very simple once you have the information or the relevant ANU policy, but others can take a lot of effort to complete and may require legal or other professional expertise. This is particularly the case when the client's in an unusual jurisdiction. We recently did a proposal for a Scottish university, which had some tricky questions we didn't know where to start with. And clients like USAID is always complex. An example of this type of thing came up in 2020 for the Defence War College tender led by SDSC and CAP. the whole proposal was about 120 pages when all said and done, and about half of that was made up of compliance style questions. Some of these were linked to the issues to the specifics of the proposal, such as the risk management plan. So our colleague Jen at the ANUE Project Management Office spent more than a week applying her risk management skills and bridging the gap between the ANU policies and the defence requirements. So seeking support on this early will mean you get the right answers and don't have to risk submitting an uncompliant proposal. Finally, I should say something more about how ANUE assists with tenders. We're part of the broader research and innovation portfolio alongside BEC, the business and engagement and commercialization team, and RSD. One of our KPIs is based on how much funding we have helped ANU to secure through tenders and proposals. So it's a real priority for us. So ANU Enterprise provides free specialized professional services to ANU academics in order to maximize their chances of success with proposals. Our strengths are in preparing and customizing tenders so they address the requirements and really highlight the ANU value and difference. We also do a lot of coordination and supporting interdisciplinary teams. In some instances, the tender will require a team from across ANU. For opportunities like this, we provide a sort of essential support and do some of the heavy lifting so that the effort doesn't fall on one individual academic or school. That said, we can also help with small individual proposals or just give advice or talk you through some options. As with everything, talk to us early for the most support and the best results. I hope all that makes sense. It's now my privilege to introduce Professor Emily Lancer. As mentioned earlier, she's the head of the Department of Health Services Research and Policy at the College of Health and Medicine at ANU. She's an economist with particular interests in priority setting, economic evaluation and policy analysis in the health system. And we've supported Emily with a few tenders over the past few years, and she's going to give you some thoughts on her side of that experience.
Thanks, John, and welcome, Emily. Great to have you here with us today. So, Emily, you've had some experience tendering over the past couple of years, particularly at ANU, and I don't know what your previous tendering experience was, but it'd be great to hear a little bit about your experience tendering, and I guess what are some of the things that you found challenging, and what are some of the benefits and tips that you might be able to share with us today?
Sure. Thanks, Eloise, and thanks, John. Thanks for the invitation, and also a public thank you for all the support you've given over a number of years with tenders and panels, which I greatly appreciate. So we have done a couple of applications with partnering with, and it genuinely is a team partnering with ANUE, and we wouldn't have got them across the line without ANUE. I can say, not just because I'm here with ANUE, but genuinely. We've got a big one with infrastructure at the minute that we're delivering. We've also worked with ANUE on a number of panel applications where we've led cross-campus tenders to get onto the APS panels. The other thing we've done in the last couple of years, I was just, as we were talking before, adding up, we've done 5 direct projects for government just in the last couple of years where they use the panel to bypass tendering. So they just come to us and say, do you want to do this piece of work, and give us a quote, and then we go ahead and do it. And I think that's come about through originally doing tendered work for them, building trust, and then using that relationship into the future projects. Challenges, I think definitely the short deadlines. So just planning early, and the beauty of working with ANUE is actually they really help map out the timelines. And the first time I did it, I had no clue about ANU processes. And so having somebody or a team actually guide, okay, you need to do this and this, and you need to leave this many days to get delegate approval was hugely helpful. So plan early, line up your delegates to sign, because they're often really busy people. They might not be around when you need them, so give them lots of advance warning. I think another challenge is, as all academics I think would relate, or probably all staff would relate to, is just the opportunity cost of time. So often to devote your time to a tender means you're not doing something else. You're delivering teaching or your grants, etc. So sometimes you need, what I find, we let some opportunities or many opportunities go through to the goalkeeper, and others we pursue. The other challenge I think with panels is because when you're putting in a tender application to get on an APS panel, you're committing the ANU and everybody at the ANU to a particular pricing structure. So putting a lot of thought into the prices, because it will affect future staff at ANU who want to use that panel. I think that's important. And yeah, just the really short timelines, I think, would be the big challenges for preparing for those.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Eloise, I was going to move on to benefits.
Yeah, go. Yeah, great. Let's hear about the benefits.
So I think, and John did a great job of already highlighting a number of these, that I think working with government, you're often, or industry, you're often working on an important policy or societal question. So I think it's definitely an avenue to engagement, and it's a potential avenue to impact. So, which is so important for the work we do. And I think as a national university, that's in our DNA, that we do want to improve society. So doing tenders and in that broad sense that John described is, I think, a really great way to do that. I actually think they can really help you with your Category 1 grants for ARC, NHMC, MRFF, because increasingly they want us to demonstrate that we have impact and that we are engaged with society. And so doing Cat 2 work can often help you demonstrate that. And indeed, if you're going for a fellowship, you have to write a lot about your engagement and impact, and doing this type of Cat 2 work helps you demonstrate that. But also, I think forming those relationships with governments are very helpful. If you're going to go on and do an ARC linkage or an NHMC partnership, you often, if you've built up a relationship, can then build them in as linkage partners or NHMC partners. Another one is, in my case, I've really valued the cross-campus collaboration that's come out of it, that some of these questions need interdisciplinary approaches, and on the back of doing tender work or work for government, we've then formed collaborative relationships that go beyond that. Definitely income. So the additional source of income is important. And I think the flexibility with income is often, it's not tied in the same way that grant income is. And in my neck of the woods in ANU, most people on soft money, so we run on the small of an early rag. So having money that is untied can be really helpful with bridging our salaries, etc. And then I think it's potentially a pipeline for the future income.
Great. Thanks, Emily. Are there any sort of final tips or piece of advice that you want to leave with the audience today?
I think start early, that we talked about, so just timing. And ANUE, work with them right from the start. It can be, because the timelines are so short, it can be pretty full on, and so start early would be my best advice. I think the writing of the proposal is very different to a grant.
Yeah.
So I think making sure that you address every selection criteria or evaluation criteria, and really say what you're going to deliver, what is the solution you're going to give for them. I think being mindful of the timelines. So a lot of these pieces of work are less than 12 months, and they'll have milestones where money is tied, and you just can't miss them. But making sure you build a team that if somebody is unavailable, you have backup. I wouldn't price at cost. So of course, in grants, we have to price at cost, but this is an opportunity where we don't have to do that, and I don't think we should sell ourselves short. So I think my advice would be to build in profit. And then once you get it, I think working collaboratively with the client and actually treating them as a part of the team. In the project that we've got going at the minute, we meet fortnightly, and it really is a collaborative and co-produced piece of work. And I think that helps when you have little hiccups along the way, that they're pretty receptive to collaboratively finding a solution. Yeah.
One of the questions that we often get in the tendering space is whether or not you have the ability to publish and things like that. And I know in the past we've worked together on a number of sort of Commonwealth contracts where we've had to push that point. Yeah. So I just wanted to make that point that it may say in the contract that you can't publish, but it doesn't mean that we can't negotiate that. And oftentimes, once we have those conversations, that the publishing the work is actually seen as a really a value add and a credible thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think saying what we're not complying on is one way to start that discussion.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Emily, for joining us today and talking about your live experience. It's really fantastic. I'm going to hand back to John now to wrap us up, and we'll have a little bit of time at the end for any questions.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I think in conclusion, we can say that tenders are an opportunity worth considering. With funding, partnerships, and further opportunities that flow. They can be complex and a really intense time, but there's a process and an understanding that can really help. And finally, there is lots of help to be had, and with a bit of knowledge, planning, and help, your tender can be a success. There's on the screen there is some more information if you want to explore this further about how to access tender opportunities at ANU and how to get support. If you can't find what you're looking for, don't hesitate to contact us for any information on any of these topics or anything else. Our contact email is tenders@anuenterprise.com.au, or visit our website and you can see the video and all the other information that's there. There's contact us information on the screen. If you enjoy this event and you are interested in expanding your sort of commercial engagement even further, you might want to attend our next event coming up on the 4th of August. It's also going to be online. You can register on Eventbrite if you're interested. But now it's time for questions. So we'll open up the chat, or you can just put up your hand and ask your question directly.
John, I might start. We had a question earlier, which didn't come through the chat, but has been asked previously, and that was thinking about government tendering, and particularly this year with the election and the caretaker period. What sort of impact has the caretaker period had, do you think, in terms of sort of tender opportunities and government releasing those, and what's the second half of this year likely to look like?
Good question. It's hard to tell in some ways. Each year is post COVID is a bit tricky to tell. But there's certainly been a pause during caretaker mode when the Commonwealth government can't release things in the same way. So we've had a little bit of a slowdown, but there's been enough work to keep us busy nevertheless. And we're sort of expecting things we'll have to see what the new government is like as to where budgets go. I think there will be a number of things that will be released that have been paused. And then we're going to be looking for probably the mid-year financial update in October or November as to what the new government wants to do, and maybe some of the new priorities will be start to find content and budgets behind them.
Great. We've just had a question come through the chat, so I'll read it out. From Olivia. The role of college level strategic partnership staff, what level of coordination do you prefer that we do? Do you prefer that academics respond directly to ANUE for calls for interest in an RFQ that has been sent out, conscious that we don't want to be another step in the timeline that might slow things down? So Olivia, I'm assuming you're in a college research office or partnership team, perhaps. So John, did you want to address that one?
So I think the key thing is to get it to exactly. Olivia's in strategic partnerships in CAP. I think the key thing is to get the opportunity to in front of all the academics as fast as possible. But then there's that critical point of assembling the team, and that's where broader networks and advice can really be useful. Because someone might be really keen to go for something, but they really need someone else to help them, or we need a broader approach, or we need to be aware that the client has certain priorities that an individual might not be aware of. And that's where our broad network can really come in and shed some light on the particular opportunity and how best to approach it. So where possible, we want the opportunities to get in front of everyone as soon as possible. And then we have a chance to have a conversation about the best way for the university as a whole to approach it. I hope that answered your question, Nadia. Cool.
Great. Any other questions? And please, I can't see everyone on screen right now, but also raise your hand using the hand icon if you have a burning question.
We might have answered everything.
Chat. Okay, look at that. We're finishing early for a Thursday afternoon. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for joining us today. As John mentioned, we do have a couple more events coming up, and we look forward to seeing you then. And please reach out if you need support in the meantime.
Thanks.